Thank you. I'm delighted to be here. And the first thing I have to say is I'm not representing SU's views on organizational development, or it's all of my independent research outside of SU. The data I've seen at SU is a part of what I've created, but it's separate, so do not take it as an official statement, all right? Okay. So when I started to think about companies and what are the patterns that I'm seeing in companies that are successful and companies that are not as successful, I started to ask people I know. And amazingly enough, there was a very similar answer many, many times from my friends, from my clients, from people that I barely knew, and it's a very common one. They say one phrase: the corporation is sucking the soul out of me. That's painful. If you think about Gallup research saying that even today, right now in 2016, it is only 32 to 33% of people who are truly engaged at their work, it means that every 2 people out of 3 are not fully engaged. And we spend most of our waking hours working. So my question was, is it all there is? Is it all that's possible? Does it have to be that we have to work this way, feeling not necessarily engaged and fulfilled for the rest of our lives so they can make a living? And I have to say that I have found patterns that make me believe something absolutely wonderful, that it does not have to be this way, that organizations can be the pathways for us to realize our genius, to multiply our genius, and to create the impact and legacy that is beyond what we can dream about. And that is what I will be talking about. So, the first thing is Russian dolls. You're all familiar. These are beautiful, cute little figures that have a lot of much smaller figures inside. And to me, it represents who we are when we come in the world. It represents human potential. When we start learning and growing, we're like a smaller version of that Russian doll. And when we learn and grow, we break through and we become a bigger version of Russian doll. But we all come prepackaged. The same thing is true with organizations. There is a potential in organizations that we can reach by breaking through and learning and growing through the patterns that are natural and familiar for all organizations. And you will see some of it, and you will recognize some of it when we talk about that in more detail. So what I did, I looked at few different approaches to exponential organizations. Systems theory for organizations talks about different things like synergy, independence, interconnection within organizations, and it sees organizations as living systems, very similar to biological living systems, because what happens is if we as human beings are like cells in the body, I mean, we'll use something very familiar to all of us, as in a body, then as a department, we form an organ or a system, the blood system, different things. And let's imagine that one of the organs is not functioning very well because for whatever reason, people there are not as excited or as engaged. If your liver is not functioning, what's happening? The toxins in your body are not getting replaced, removed, and your whole body becomes sluggish. So it's very, very important, that people are functioning at their best. And it's very, very important that altogether the system as a unit, as a whole, is functioning at their best. Because that is the condition for us to move up and evolve as organization and as human beings. Yeah. Yes, it worked. So what I did, I put together something that came to me very naturally as a system of patterns that I have seen in different organizations. And it all seems to be very logical. One of the things you would notice, these are exponential curves. If we don't stop them here, they will expand. And this is the amount of energy that people bring to work and to life. It's like the amount of engaged energy. So depending on where an organization is in its own level of development, it will either decrease the amount of energy that people bring in or increase it. And the beautiful thing is when we know where we want to go, we go there a lot faster and with a lot more joy. So the lowest level of organization is a clan organization. And these are organizations that are mostly focused on financial survival or financial success. And these are tightly knit organizations of people who are loyal and committed. You can think of mafia. That's a great level of commitment. But it's not necessarily fun. They're somewhat chaotic. They're not necessarily planning. And there's very authoritative. There's one person who typically makes all of the decisions. So people are engaged to a very small degree. They are a part of that team, but they're not inspired in every way. And it can be pretty hard. People at that level feel that they cannot change the situation, they cannot affect it, and the creativity is low, and they kind of fit into whatever that is, that the role that they were given. The next level up is mechanical organizations, and most of you are very well familiar with hierarchical systems. And there is a lot of value in those systems. There is good planning, the processes are strong, and you can predict what's going to happen in the organization. The only challenge is that these are not exponential, these are linear organizations. Yes, you can predict what's going on if the circumstances do not change. And what we know today is our life is changing at the pace that is so rapid that we cannot even predict what is happening in 10 years from now. 5 years we probably can guess. I don't know how right we will be, but at least we can try. So with mechanical organizations, this is a perfectly oiled machine. And it has worked in the past because we lived in a different world. And now it's not going to be enough for organizations. Some of the challenges with mechanical organizations is also the thinking and execution is separated, so you do not expect a lot of input on creativity from people in such organization. But again, execution is beautiful, and it feels good because the processes are perfected. The next level up, level 3, is market organizations. These are organizations that react to consumer needs, so customer needs. They create what is necessary, and they strive to bring the best practices and be ahead of their competition. Very exciting place to be. They tend to be transparent, open, they tend to be fair. There is a certain level of innovation in those organizations. And there is also a bureaucracy. There are also politics, because in this particular organization, people live from their head. Here, people are not as even aware of what's driving them. It's more reactionary kind of way of living, and this is more of the rational, very logical way of living. So there's a lot of great here, and with today's world, it may not be enough. So the next step, the level 4, is where organizations and people expand beyond their head. And that's why they want to do something meaningful, something that makes a difference, and that's why they're revolutionary organizations. Typically, people expand in their heart. We just heard a beautiful presentation by Darlene about learning and how much is being done there, right? Especially in the countries that do not have all of the tools and all the choices that we have here in the United States. But this is where people want to make a difference. They want to make a difference with poverty. They want to make a difference in animal welfare. They want to make a difference in technology. It doesn't matter what you're passionate about. These are the passionate organizations. And it feels great. There is trust. There is empowerment of people. People are being brought into leadership. It's an inspiring place to be. And the downsides typically are that there is a lot of high and low emotions. So it can be draining. And processes are people-based, which may not be the most efficient way to do it. So it is still hard to scale. It is still somewhat linear. And the next level up is where the exponential organizations begin. The secret is very simple. When organization empowers its people, when people are stopping when people no longer think about survival, but they really start getting to the point of giving because they are taken care of, the magical thing happens. This is where the big transformative purpose, as Salim Ismail called it in his wonderful presentations about exponential organizations in his book, this big transformative purpose is what unites people and ignites people. So now it's the head and the heart are engaged, and people do make a difference in their work, and it's becoming a play hard work hard kind of environment. And this is where networks of teams get inspired. And this is where autonomy of teams starts being very visible. And that gives a lot of adaptability, that gives a lot of flexibility for organization. And this is where people feel they work hard and they play hard. It's fun to be there. Life is an adventure, and it is a fantastic place to be. A lot of people, especially startups, when they start, they are in that place. They want to play hard and work hard. That's their motto. They're in it together, and it's an inspiring place to be. The next level up, and again, one of the things is you probably hear and read a lot, I do, about teams, empowered teams being that level of progress and evolution that organizations are looking at right now, and that's this level. It's a beautiful place to be, truly, truly beautiful, and it's transformative for organizations, and it's transformative for all around them, for partners, for vendors, for clients, for anybody. It's truly transformative business. The next level up is the flow state. It's where organizations focus on activating genius in people. And by activating genius in people, there are multiple ways of doing that. They also create that circle of genius, the teams of genius, and then it becomes more than 1 + 1. It becomes a multiplier of genius, which is a fantastic place to be, and creativity goes to very different level. We all have been in that state of being in the flow. We know how different it is. And when you are with people who are in that place, that is the most fulfilling, the most inspiring thing to be. This is when time flies and you really don't know what's happening, and you love, absolutely love what's created, because it is beyond your normal rational creation. So companies are experimenting with 4-day work weeks. They're experimenting with different setups, because bringing out the genius in people is incredibly powerful, and it really sets organizations beyond anything else. And the next level up, the level 7, is when organization becomes one, when people feel that they're so clear on the goals of organization. They're so bought into the dream of that organization. They share that dream. They dream together, and in that place, we all become one, and we're now a part of that body that we talked about a part of that living system that inspires us. And we know our role, and there is autonomy, there is self-management, there is co-creation, and it's co-creation for evolution. So whatever is emerging in this place becomes a beautiful beginning. It's like, imagine you have an improv band of really top players, and whatever note comes out, even if it was intended, it's going to be taken, and a beautiful melody will be built together by people with that melody. That's what it is. It's improvising together. There is experimenting, there is playing, and it feels good. Here at this level below that, there was some of the consciously created chaos, breaking the systems, trying to reinvent better systems, trying to take the product and completely start from scratch. And here it feels so much for flowing. It's just a beautiful thing. And this is where the community means not just the employees of organization, but it goes into community of partners, community of clients, and it's kind of like an open source system. So it's a very fluid environment. It doesn't have to be a big organization, can be small organizations, could be humongous, just different things are possible. So this is what I have created, and to me, what I see, it's not necessarily that you have to go through all of the stages and master all of them. We can certainly leapfrog. If we consciously create an immersion process and we're really focused on those particular characteristics of a particular level of thinking, levels of consciousness, levels of energy, doesn't matter what it is, what we call it, but thinking of the organization, we can leapfrog. And that's the beautiful part. And when we know where we want to be, it is so much easier. So I wasn't the only one who had this great idea. There were many, many wonderful people who thought about the subject, and I wanted to share some of the systems that are similar to what it is. In this particular case, in the book of Reinventing Organizations, Frederic Laloux and Ken Wilber talk about that it's a business imperative for organizations to be different, and we see it already in reality. It's already happening. So what is in? Few things, profound change in thinking. That's where, however we think is how we create everything. Passion and purpose. very clear. Leveraging genius has to happen. There's just no way it won't happen, and you won't get far without it. That's very, very critical. Global impact. I know that's why you are here, because you all care about global impact, because you all want to impact 1 billion people. Empowered networks of teams and living systems. And unfortunately, these systems that have worked very well in the past are just no longer enough. It's not the fault, it's not that they're bad, it's just they were right for a particular period of time, and our time is changing. We just can't continue that way. It's not enough. And you've talked about the different learning systems. So we're activating different abilities in people by getting those other systems in place, like an environment. We're creating an environment where different parts of us get activated. So this is the system from Frederic Laloux and Ken Wilber. They have a fantastic article, I mean, a great book and fantastic article if you don't want to read the whole book, Teal Organizations, where there's a lot more said about different types of organizations. And I just want to bring you into that Teal organization, which says self-management for evolutionary purpose. I actually haven't seen this graph. I just read the other, the bigger articles and the book. And when I saw it, I was like, wow, we're certainly on the same wavelength here, really even using the same language, which is fantastic. This is the system from Barrett's Value Center. Richard Barrett has got a gazillion of wonderful, wonderful books on organizational consciousness, individual consciousness, how to measure that in the companies. And it's a very similar concept. His is more close to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So it's, again, a little bit different. But mine was more on what is it that I've experienced, what have I seen, and what are the words that make sense to me at this time, because I think the meaning of words changes too. This is from Burson by Deloitte, and also they talked about the industrial corporation, hierarchical, collaborative management, networks of team, and they're seeing the emergence of passion and purpose, the next level of organizations as well. So they talk about evolution of management thinking. So new organizations, what are they like? In a way, they're superhuman living systems. And that's what makes them so super powerful, because when you take us all together, we become more than the sum of its parts. They are dependent, I mean, they're defined by their organizational thinking, because where we come from matters, and that defines how we do everything. Engaging the genius is a core element, and co-creating for evolution. Because again, the environment around us will change, and everything will change. So the big shift, everything is changing right now. And here at Singularity University, we know that better than anybody else, I think, because we get the very insider view on what's happening in the world. So we just can't do business or live the old way. We've got to change. And a couple of reminders here. The linear organizations are the clan organizations, the mechanical organizations, the market organizations. And exponential organizations are based on unity, emergence of new, genius, impact, and play. So experimenting and play is the same thing. So we learn by experimenting or playing. And even strategic things there's a concept there about strategic playing when you do strategy through experimenting and playing. So it's back to having a wonderful time at life and work, because we're going to see a lot more play ahead. So how does it affect the global grand challenges? My personal thing, I just have to say, I think it affects every single one of them, because how we think as an organization will determine what we do and how we do it. But we can certainly start with human fulfillment. When people are in a place of their genius, are they fulfilled? Because it's a full self-actualization. It's a wonderful way of living, and it's just such a happy place to be. With that what happens? The stress goes down. When the stress goes down, our diseases go down. We become healthier, because when our body is in balance and it's not stressed, it's remarkable. It can heal itself. So, I mean, that's going to have a huge effect on the health system, and it will have a huge effect on the money that is spent, or the whole concept of governments spending the money on keeping people, managing people who are sick, while the whole concept would be on preventing people being sick. And what do you create with your population when it is happy and healthy? Very different way of being. So governance. I mean, when the government thinks about creating the future for its citizens, not the future that is enticing, the future from the standpoint of abundance, the future from the standpoint of how do we realize human potential, it's a beautiful thing. And I already know there is a lot of people like chief happiness officers are in different governments, including in US governments. So it is happening, it is changing right now, and I personally am so excited about it. I do believe that we as people who work will have more opportunities to realize our potential, to step into our genius, to truly leverage the genius of others and make a difference in the world. And I do believe in organizations being the pathways for us to realize our genius, to create what is beyond our individual capacities. These are going to be, in the very near future, a very treasured experiences, the experiences that will inspire, the experiences that will allow us to shine. So share my dream, bring it in, see your every day with that perspective, and it will come into reality a lot faster. Thank you.